There are so many different kinds of artists, and in this episode, I chatted with a climate artist, Bodley. Sean creates climate-themed illustrations and plein-air paintings, and he's also a background artist in animation. In this conversation, Sean introduced me to climate art and shared how he envisions a future where we combine art with urban planning, while taking into account of climate change. His love for nature fuels his passion for art, and a few years ago, he was able to share his landscape paintings with many local people through a very successful Kickstarter campaign. It's super inspiring and you don't want to miss this. This is Kaylee and you're listening to the Warrior Painters podcast.
My name is Sean Bodley. I'm originally from Wisconsin, but I'm living in Los Angeles right now. I identify as a climate artist, and I'm transitioning careers from fine art and teaching into the entertainment arts. So that's sort of me in a nutshell right now.
Tell me more about this climate artist. What do you mean?
So the climate artist isn't really a job per se, because I haven't found a way to make a career of it yet, but it's basically making art factoring in climate change. Specifically, science fiction is so much about technology and the future. I think being optimistic and being creative with technology and art and culture and that type of stuff. So climate art takes the future changes into account. So it's less about kind of galactic empires and maybe redesigning your neighborhood, to be more resilient or something like that.
Right. Is this something you came up with, or is it actual subject?
So it's not something I came up with, because there's been a long lineage of artists who've worked around the environment. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson has a funny video where he talks about Van Gogh was the first artist to focus on the night sky in Starry Night. Like no other artist had made the sky their subject before.
Really? That's interesting.
Maybe that's not true, because people have been looking up at the stars forever, right? But
I know.
I think he was one of the first to ever paint it as just an object of beauty. So climate art, there's a bunch of other artists doing it, and in different ways. There's people doing theater, there's people making documentaries, and fine art has some stuff, but it's very abstract. There's comics and things like that. I'm more in the illustration vein. I try to make illustrations about climate change. But yeah, there's concept artists doing it. I'm just really excited for hopefully one day like movies, to be made about this subject, that's going on.
I've seen many artists like painting about pollution and how plastic waste and the ocean, and is that part of this art?
Definitely. There's actually, I back someone on Patreon. She does this comic called The Trash Maid. It's like about the Little Mermaid, but the ocean is polluted. So every comic is a skit about how she kind of humorously deals with the pollution. It's very funny considering the subject matter. So a little trash maid.
That's interesting. I hope more people can look at the art and stop throwing away trash to the ocean.
Right.
I know you talked about your education background a little bit in the other episode, but for other listeners who might not have heard about that one, maybe you want to just introduce that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to go to college and accidentally fall into art in my first year. It was the first time I did painting, and learning how to draw, that was my big opening into the world of art. And since then, I keep taking classes and things like that.
And then why did you decide to move to LA?
Well, it's a long story short. I could probably say plein-air maybe led me out here, but I was studying in Milwaukee at the state school, and my wife, then girlfriend, moved to Pennsylvania. And so we moved there, and I started teaching and landscape painting all around Pennsylvania. Eventually, I wanted to move out of plein air and fine art as a living, sort of, because I was painting a lot of pictures and selling them. But I wanted to move out of that and towards working with a team, on a larger project. So LA is just the best place for that I've found.
Oh, so you didn't want to be a teacher anymore.
Basically. And my goal was to be able to teach just for the joy of it. Now that I've been able to leave teaching for a while, I'm starting to teach again just online for fun.
Are you teaching plein air painting online right now?
No, occasionally I'll do a Zoom class with some of my old students in Pennsylvania.
So it's like a private tutor thing?
Kind of. Yeah. I'll teach my friends' kids little art lessons, over Zoom.
Okay. And then you said it was plein air that brought you over to LA, or was that the entertainment industry attracted you to come here?
Yeah, so I guess backing up a little bit, like in Milwaukee, I was very into fine art and I was working at a art supply store. This guy there introduced me to plein air painting who worked there. He was an older guy. All the workers there were artists. And he actually, as a farewell gift when I was moving to Pennsylvania, gave me a plein air easel because we had talked about it and he'd given me some books on the subject. So in Pennsylvania, that's where I used that easel and the books that he gave me and started. And that's where I got like my painting basics, I think, going outside and painting. So then when I learned about the entertainment industry and how a lot of these background artists do this technique, it was kind of like, well, maybe that's where I belong in a sense. So
Right. So when was that? When did you move here?
So I moved here in 2018.
How do you like it so far?
I like it. My wife hates it. But I think it's the closeness to nature, actually. She grew up in the country and I grew up in a town, so I can kind of do either or. I do miss fall and other like colder weather sometimes.
Well, it's fall right now.
Yeah, I know, supposedly. But no, I do love the city a lot.
So she moved here with you because of your pursuit.
Well, we kind of moved together. She had a position out here as a scientist. She's a researcher.
Right.
So, yeah.
So maybe she got the job first and then you were like, I wanted to go to LA anyways. I'll go with you.
Yes.
Is that what happened?
Yes.
That's good. That's perfect and sweet.
Totally, yeah.
So before you got into college and got into all those painting and art classes, did you try to pick up art when you were a kid? And why did you go to art school, basically?
I drew a lot as a kid. And I loved games. So I would make card games with my friends, but I never had a formal training. There might have been one class in high school that I remember. We didn't even do painting really, though. It was just a drawing. So
how did you prepare your portfolio to get into art school?
Well, luckily, since it was a state school and I was already in for kinesiology, somehow I missed a loophole. And I was already taking classes by the time I realized, wait, do I need a portfolio to be here? But I was already just taking classes. So I somehow avoided any portfolio.
That's nice.
Yeah, UW Milwaukee, it wasn't bad.
How do you, I know you talk a lot about self-learning and stuff in the other podcast, but how did you keep up your art schedule after you graduate art school?
Yeah, so it ties back to that fellow who gave me the easel, Mike Nielsen. He introduced me to this painter, Richard Schmid, who is a legendary plein air and still life painter. Right as I graduated, I got his book. It taught me how to paint. After all these years of school, I finally opened this book and it's like, oh, this is how you really paint observationally from life. So I kind of questioned my whole education and was just like, there's all this other stuff to learn that no one's teaching. And it just kept going and going. Eventually I found Schoolism and Concept Art Academy and Brainstorm. And also teaching, you learn a lot. So I would always research for my students. So I was always buying books and sharing resources. So yeah, I just love learning.
So you were learning and teaching at the same time. How long was that after you graduated until you moved to LA?
It was a long time, like 8 or 9 years.
Oh, wow. That was a long time.
Yeah, with private students. Like I put a flyer up and I got these two students, and we worked together for a year and a half, and then I moved to Pennsylvania and basically put up more flyers.
Wow, I didn't know flyers worked. Like,
not really. But like, once you get word of mouth and you develop the skills of teaching, which took me a while, a long time. And yeah, I just got better and better at it. And it was a small community in Pennsylvania, so it really was tight.
Right. But you didn't want to go to art school and teach like a class before?
I didn't want to, because at that point I was so interested in other types of art than fine art. Like I wanted to learn concept art, environment design. I didn't know what those were called. But in the schools, all they were teaching really was like fine art. And it's very competitive for very low pay. So I just did private lessons and could design the curriculum around the student. And it was much more fulfilling. It was like one-on-one, which is very rare. I will say I did teach at the Penn State Craft Center. So I did teach at the university officially.
Legit.
But it was like night classes. And that's where I met some really great painting buddies, actually. They'd come to this night class and learn. And then on the weekends, we'd go paint out in the fields or whatever.
Okay.
Plein-air style, yeah.
So I guess that was one of the reasons why after you moved to LA, you were looking for a group of people to paint with.
I knew. I was searching. I was
right?
like, who? I know there's painters out there. Yeah.
Okay. So talk about that. Did you find other groups besides the warrior painters when you first moved here?
You know, I searched a lot, and you guys were the ones who were almost the only ones, and you really stood out. There were some other groups, but they're very far away or very...
I'm glad you find us.
Yeah, me too.
You talk about plein-air a lot. I know you read the book about plein-air painting and stuff. Was that the first time you heard about this phrase, plein-air painting?
From my coworker, yeah. It was right as I graduated college. So like 2010, I had heard about it. I mean, it actually took me a while to get into it. I previously sketched outside, which I had liked. It's easier. The first time I plein-air painted was in Pennsylvania, and I just had read enough about it. I was literally like reading books on it, but I hadn't done it. And so I just took my stuff outside and did a really terrible painting, and it was cold. Like there was frost and my fingers were cold. And I was like, this kind of stinks. Like, I don't know. But by the end of it, it was just very satisfying seeing the light move through a space and twinkle off of the frost and the animals and everything come alive, you know, in the morning.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
It was a great first experience.
Okay, and did you keep painting afterwards?
Yeah, so I tried to make a habit of it, and that didn't work very well because, you know, it's raining or, oh, there's excuses. What got me there was I did a Kickstarter to raise money to help me paint every month over the course of a year.
Oh.
It's called like Capturing the Light of Central Pennsylvania. I guess it's a really cheesy title, but I really did want to study a whole year, 10 paintings a month, like every month for a year to see the whole cycle of nature, I guess.
Around the same area, or were you traveling around?
Same region, all central PA. I was living on this mountain called Mount Nittany. It's famous in the area. Yeah, I'd just go up there and hike and paint, and I became friends with locals, and they'll show you like the abandoned railway tunnel or the caves that you can go in to paint. So all these crazy places, and with that, those backers behind me, it was like a discipline at that point because rain or shine, you have to go out and paint.
Wow. So your campaign was funded successfully.
It was a very low budget, yes.
But it was okay to support you for the whole year?
Basically, yeah, I got like double my funding, and then I was able to sell
double your funding.
Double funding. And then I was able to sell the paintings after. You know, I exhibited them after because I had so many paintings. I still have a few.
Do you remember how many in total?
Yeah, it was like roughly 150.
Wow, 150.
Like
how
2
big?
years.
How big?
So the way I set it up is I had little teeny 4x4s all the way up to 2 foot by 3 foot.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
it
And
was a lot of work. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of work to carry all those around too.
Yeah.
Did you do smaller studies outside in nature and come back to your studio to finish the bigger one? Or did you bring the big cameras out?
Yeah. So I did do a lot of the big ones indoors.
Mm,
So I'd often go out and do the small ones as
mhm.
studies and then come back in and work on the larger ones.
Okay, okay. And those were all in oils?
Yep. All oils.
Oh, oh my God. I know
Yeah,
you really like oils. I see you
I
painting
do.
oil all the time.
I love it.
And you said afterwards you had a gallery exhibition of all these paintings you did?
Yeah, I hustled them. Like I
Mm.
had every cafe, and it was a very small area and not a lot of commercial galleries. So it was like the local art centers, which there's two really good communities there. I just kept exhibiting new pieces. I can think of one exhibit. There's this place called Runnymede. It's a weird name, but these are things you find in a local place when you go out and you
Mm-hmm,
keep
mm-hmm.
exploring. It's like this hilltop that overlooks the most beautiful valley, and they have a art studio there and they have artists exhibit. So a lot of these kind of local gallery venues. Yeah, I
Okay.
showed at dozens of places. Yeah,
Wow.
a lot. I really my little car carried so many paintings around. Yeah.
So how many paintings you saw during that period of time?
I stopped like the spreadsheet management at some point because I just didn't, it was too much. But I sold, I want to say at least a third or half of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, a lot.
And did you send prints to your sponsors, like to your
Yeah.
patron
Well, actually, my Kickstarter backers, they got
backers?
some of the paintings.
Yeah.
They got the first paintings. And then what was left over, I sold. So they
Also,
got original artworks.
by
'Cause-
supporting you monthly.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so cool.
Yeah.
You should do that again. You can explore California.
I've been thinking about it. I think what makes LA different is the urban landscape. Yeah, I should just take like a few months off, and do like dedicated time.
Yeah. Before the quarantine, did you paint based off of photo references, or did you always go out to paint?
I had started painting from photo references for sketches, but I guess I hadn't really done finished pieces before. And with quarantine, like staying inside a lot more, yeah, I've gotten much more comfortable with painting from photographs, which is a little uncomfortable for me usually.
Oh, tell me more about that. Why?
Well, you're just missing so much. Like you're missing the smells, the sounds, the wind. It's very virtual. Yeah, it's
Right,
just,
right.
yeah.
But how do you paint smells and sounds into your painting when you're in nature?
So it just makes it more fun. It actually, my digital paintings are better than my traditional a lot of the time.
Well, I like your traditional. I like your digital. I like both. I don't think one is better than the other.
I think what painting from photos does though is like it forces you to paint more than what you see. Like I think from a photograph you should paint extra. Like you should experiment and not follow the photograph completely. Whereas sometimes from nature I really do enjoy just trying to copy what I see since so much is happening.
You can copy. You can copy a photo.
Yeah, it's just so much more boring, I guess. I don't know.
Oh,
It
okay,
just
okay.
because there's no like sun moving or elements changing, I feel like actually let me back up. So one of the things I learned in that Kickstarter is if I painted too closely from a photograph, I'd create a large scale photocopy of that image. So it wasn't really like a new artwork. And it even have the colors of like a screen almost in the painting because I was so true to the color. So copying the photo too much is bad.
And how do you think plein air painting has helped you with your profession or your life so far?
It makes you faster. You have to move quickly because everything is changing. That is very professional characteristic.
That's interesting. When you paint, you just stay there for a long time and you say it makes you faster. It's like, okay, I don't see you moving.
You're like, you guys are going slower, if anything.
So faster as in painting faster or as in making color decisions faster?
So there's this thing called chasing the light, which is if you stay too long, the light is moved and you're painting new colors on top of old colors. And it becomes this chase where your painting keeps changing from what it was. And to me, that happened all the time as a beginner. It's a very beginner thing. If you're copying exactly what you see. So the more experienced you get, you can sit and, I guess, make up for that. You can kind of fudge it a little bit. You can fake it. When you're starting, you do kind of have to paint quickly. Even like an hour is the maximum before the light is very different.
So when you said make you faster, you meant make you paint faster, right?
Yeah.
I was like,
it just makes your attention, for me, it turns your attention on and urgent.
Does it change your personality as well?
Plein-air painting? I don't know. That's a good question. I think you appreciate nature more in a sense. And I think it helps you be connected to your city. Like with warrior painters, I've been introduced to whole new areas and ecosystems, mountains, oceans, special places in the city that I would have never found. So in that sense, I think it makes you more worldly in a sense, or just connected.
Do you normally have like a theme in mind that you want to, like, do you have a plan? Like for the next few months, I'm going to paint mountains, or for the other few months, I'm going to paint, I don't know, the ocean. Do you have like that? Or do you just want to explore different things every time you go out?
I think it's usually working on something like, oh, I want to push my color more. I don't care too much where we go. Yeah, it's usually like be more adventurous with the color or do a better composition, things like that.
What are you working on right now then?
Oh, right now? I haven't been plein air painting in a little bit, but what I'm working on is getting out into my neighborhood and just getting out there and painting buildings, people, just trying to get out and paint. That's my goal.
Just wear a mask.
Yeah.
And what is your practice or painting schedule?
It depends if I'm on a job or if I'm looking for a job. But there's always a daily drawing routine I do in the morning to warm up, and then I'll do some master studies. Then I'll get into some sort of project.
How many hours would you say on average you practice every day?
I'd say 1 hour at minimum, maybe 2 or more if I'm doing a class as well. I do my morning drawing with pencil and pen, traditional, and then I do digital all through the day. And sometimes I'll try to do gouache at night, like still life painting, to keep the traditional painting skills alive.
Sounds like it's more than 1 hour a day to me.
It depends if I get all of those like in one day. Yeah. If I'm on a job, then it's like an hour a day at most.
What kind of jobs have you been taking freelance work for this past few months?
I got my first studio job at the start of the pandemic, basically.
Wow.
And it was a really great experience. They did have to shut down their production for a little bit, but they started it up and we finished it. So right now I'm looking for background work in animation. I do have some small illustration freelance that I do, but it doesn't take too much time.
Do you take commissions?
I do, but I haven't been seeking them. I do have a landscape commission right now from someone who lives in California, but has a home in Pennsylvania, and they want a picture of Pennsylvania for their California house. It's kind of like a cut. Yeah. Yeah. I'll get unique traditional painting commissions. Like I did a big painting for an Airbnb, or not an Airbnb, a bed and breakfast in Pennsylvania. They just wanted a Pennsylvania landscape.
Right.
I'll get jobs through Etsy, because I post my traditional work on there. And so people will find Pennsylvania landscapes and then they'll email me.
Oh, that's interesting, because you had all those paintings from that Kickstarter campaign back in the day.
Back in the day.
When was that? Like, it's still like a few years ago?
The Kickstarter I did in 2014.
Oh, okay. Not that long.
Not the day, but a ways back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back a ways.
How do you find ways to motivate yourself to practice, to keep getting better?
Yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. It's just supporting my family and surviving as an artist. I've learned that you really have to practice. And so there's nothing else I really want to do more than art related projects. So, and I do enjoy the studying. Sometimes it's a pain, but I feel like that's enough motivation. Things like teaching are also really motivational, and just like seeing other artists and what they're doing just gets me so inspired.
Well, I understand that the financial pressure maybe works
Hmm.
for your digital painting because that's how you want to get jobs and make money, right? What about your traditional painting? Like, it probably doesn't make as much money as your digital painting. So how do you motivate yourself for that, for your plein air, for your traditional painting?
Maybe it's just reflex because that's how I trained, was traditional. It's just feels easy and I enjoy it.
That's the
And
key. You enjoy
that's the
it.
key. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Like I have dreams of maybe 40 years from now doing fine art again, because I think painting does have a special voice. A static painting can communicate a lot, but it's just not right now. Yeah.
We talked about you like oils. Is that your favorite painting medium?
I think digital is my favorite
Oh,
right now.
really? Oh, right
Yeah,
now.
right now. And gouache is a close second.
Mm.
I'm learning to like gouache more. I watched Angela's tutorials, bought all the paints, and I'm really liking it now. So
In general, do you have a favorite subject?
I think it comes back to the climate art, which is more imaginative painting. To me, that's what my paintings like. When I think of doing a painting, it's usually an illustration where perhaps I've even done landscape studies. Like if I'm doing an LA climate piece, going out and studying up on the hills, those two connect. But the end goal of what I really want to paint is usually something climate related or science fiction.
Is that limited to your traditional painting, or when you do digital painting, you also do climate art?
That's right. Yeah. With digital too.
Okay. Because it sounds to me it's like a sci-fi story almost, or I can see an animation about about this topic when you were talking about climate art. Have you thought about like a character going through different adventures like that?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of ideas, but I'm not a writer, so I can't like get those ideas out, I guess, very quickly.
You can use your
um,
art to get your ideas out.
yeah, so I am taking classes right now. Like I just finished character design, and I'm going to take hard surface design and storyboarding. And so hopefully over the next couple years, I could maybe put together like a graphic novel or just a storyboard with some color. That's an achievable goal to me.
Can you share one of your ideas with us?
Yeah, actually, my Patreon has a bunch of different ideas in it. They're usually like one shot stories. So one is like sort of a cowboy character sitting on top of a wind turbine, but the water is up near the top of the turbine to show, a really high sea level rise. And he's just sipping a cup of coffee. So kind of little character stories like that. Or there's another one of a girl who is riding on top of a tortoise terrarium. So inside this animal garden, she like harvests seeds and is like scattering seeds around.
That's like the Walking Dead setting, post-apocalyptic world. And you
Yes.
have all the different characters living in different areas. Sounds interesting if you can develop into a story how they meet and then solve some issues together, hopefully.
Yeah, I really like the idea of a dark environment, but an optimistic story.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to connect them because I tend to create characters depending on wherever I'm living. So I had a lot of stories in Pennsylvania related to the environment there and their issues. But now that I'm here for a while, like there's a lot of other things happening here that I want to capture. So yeah, hopefully a real story.
Have you done a lot of air pollution related climate art since you moved to LA?
No, mostly just painting plein air. You can see like the atmosphere. You're like, oh, the AQI must be like 150. I have done a project where I redesigned my neighborhood and like did concept art for what would happen if you tore up the street and planted crops and changed the economy a little bit.
That's interesting. And I remember you did a demo on your apartment building. That was you changing your apartment building into like the more environmental friendly, and you have different stuff outside, different
That's
plants.
right.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
That's something you like to do.
That's something I would actually like to make a business out of that at some point. I think every community is going to need kind of like engineers and artists who, like science fiction artists actually, to try to envision like what communities should build for resilience. And I think concept artists have all the tools for that. So sometime in the future, I'd love to try to bridge these demands that are coming. This is all based on a book called Visualizing Climate Change, where this guy's an engineer, landscape designer, and talks about this envisioning process for how to like change the way we think about the fossil fuel infrastructure that we have.
Right. And now you already have your wife as a scientist. I think you just need an architect partner.
Yes.
and
a marketer.
Oh, yeah. And you can start a company right away. Yeah, we need that. But hopefully people are going to be more aware of this after this pandemic, I think, because of all the protective gears we've been using. It's been very polluting to the environment, huh? Like all the masks and all the other stuff.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that aspect of it.
I saw so many articles about that.
I hope that at least the pandemic will make us more reliant on local, like less long supply chains, I guess, and focus more on like our local communities. I don't know if that's true though.
I don't know. I think people just forget about things.
Yeah, I don't think that'll,
We don't know. We don't even know if this pandemic is ever going to be over. So
there's no rules. Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely support local small businesses is very eco-friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw the project you did with the local brewery, right?
Yeah. So I've been doing illustrations for a craft brewery. They're out of New York, actually.
Oh, okay. Support them too. They're a small business.
They're a local community over there. Actually, my good friend, Casey Klug, he connected me with his brewer friend who needed an illustrator.
Yeah. How many pieces have you done? I saw a lot already.
Almost 15.
Wow.
Yeah. He's making a lot of beer. It was kind of perfect because he came to me looking for an artist with nature-y themes and landscape and traditional painting.
Okay, going back to plein-air painting, what are some of the plein-air artists you look up to?
Going back to Richard Schmid, his book is just amazing. His words and his thoughts on plein air are how I try to think when I paint and just be very aware. And then also from the group, Warrior Painter group, Q Ma, following her work online, it's just so amazing. She's always plein air painting. She makes the time to drive places. So her work is really inspiring.
It seems like you've read a lot of plein air books or art books in general. Do you have any books you want to recommend besides the one you just mentioned?
Oh, yeah. There's a few. The ones that I really fell in love with were John Carlson's book on outdoor painting. When you read it, that man just loves nature. He'll just talk about a tree for 5 pages. And Edgar Payne has an amazing book on composition for landscape painting. He's a classic California painter. And James Gurney, Color and Light, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone mentions that book. And what are some tips you could offer to people who want to start learning plein air painting?
I think the biggest thing is just go outside. Just don't think about it too much. Maybe start with sketching if you're uncomfortable with the colors, but just go outside and pick a place you're comfortable and try sketching.
And lastly, what do you like most about the group, Warrior Painters group?
I like the laughter, how fun it is. Every Warrior Painters event, in person, I could find the group by just hearing like a large group of people laughing and joking together.
You mean we're really loud?
Yeah, you guys are loud, and I love it. I love it. Even on the Discord, it's that same vibe. Super fun. So,
all right. Anything else you would like to share? Like any life motto or?
I don't have a life motto, but I do want to give a shout out to my good friend and student, Peggy Klinger. She showed me everywhere in central Pennsylvania, her and a few other people. So I guess if I have any words of advice or anything, I guess just find locals and spend some time with them.
She was the local you met during your Kickstarter thing?
Yeah, and she knew about artists I didn't know about. She is an avid painter, so unfortunately we don't paint together anymore since we're long distance, but yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Sean.
Thanks, Kaylee. Thanks for having me on to chat.
Thanks for listening. We love hearing from you. Feel free to write us a review on Apple Podcast or other platforms, leave us a comment on YouTube, or just message us on Instagram. If you want to support us, please consider donating on Gumroad. You'll find a link in the description. All right, see you again soon.